What's up, guys? Matt Brown from the LSR Podcast. Thanks for joining me and Dustin and Adam right here on the channel each and every week. And while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to tackle in a future episode. But without further ado, here's a clip from episode number 62.
Well, it's a pleasure here on the LSR Podcast to be joined by Casey Clark from the American Gaming Association, along with Dustin Gouker here, Adam Candee. Casey, how you doing this morning?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Hey, we're hanging in there as best we can, trying to keep up with what has been a surprisingly busy time of gaming news here over the pandemic time. We thought originally this would be a bit of a slower time, but a lot of things have been going on. Maybe tell us a little bit about what the focus has been for the AGA during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my nearly 3 years in the industry, I've learned there isn't a downtime, right? And so the pandemic has proven to be in character for the industry in that. I think for us, we've been focused a lot on early on at least, was focused on kind of ensuring that the gaming industry was included in CARES Act and federal stimulus activities so that we were making sure that we could protect the employees and the businesses involved in the gaming business. So that's been a lot. That took a lot of time. We were pretty successful at that, at least, beating the odds, if you want to say that, around what predicate used to be in terms of how the gaming industry is treated and these sorts of things. So we're pretty happy with the result of those activities, and we're gearing up again, obviously, for more stimulus activity to start next week. So we spent a lot of time on that, but we've been continuing our research, and I think you guys saw the research we put out this week on sports betting and the people migrating away from the illegal market, which has continued to be a focus. You guys have been big supporters of the stuff we're doing to try to hold media outlets and others accountable for the kind of shameless advertising and promotion they're doing of offshore books. And so, it's kind of never stopped for us either.
So Casey, along those lines, the research that came out this week discussed a bit of how it's difficult for some bettors to know the difference between whether they're betting with a legal site or whether they're betting with an offshore site. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what that research showed and what you think can be done.
I think it showed what probably all three of us have been hopeful for, right, is that legalization provides consumers a safer option for doing what they want to do anyway. This is not, as I tweeted yesterday, and we've talked about a lot, this isn't an activity that started when the court had validated PASPA. This is something that's been happening in America for a long time. We're just giving people the opportunity to do it legally. Now that more people have the option closer to home than they had before, I think what we're seeing is there is an appetite, a significant appetite, for consumers to want to bet in the legal market only. But there is a lot of confusion out there about what's legal and not, and I think that stems from convenience, right? I think that you guys had that great piece, Dustin. I think it was your piece yesterday about the things the federal government could do, and cracking down on illegal offshore books who are just allowed to operate fairly unfettered in this market is really problematic. And as long as people can Google sports betting and the first results that you're seeing there are offshore books, and I've got a real problem with things like the 5 tournament that's happening in Vegas that's sponsored by an offshore book. We've got to all work collectively to make sure that these people aren't getting the access to consumers and bettors the way that they have been. And that's why we've been pretty vigilant on making sure that every time we're seeing some mainstream outlet decide that it's interesting to write about prop bets related to their friend's divorce rate during COVID, that we're making sure that people understand they're offering free advertising to illegal books who are preying on consumers and doing a real disservice to the regulated market.
The part, the media part we've been talking about, and obviously we all know what's going on with the legal versus the offshore unregulated market. It's frustrating because the media is usually pretty savvy when it comes to something like this. I strain my brain to think about what's a comp for this, where the media would just, kind of unknowingly play along with something that's not operating legally in a jurisdiction or the United States. That's the part that really gets me, is that there's no. For some reason, this is just a blind spot for the media as they deal with this kind of thing. Do we have any idea why? Like, it boggles my brain all the time that I just don't have an answer for it. Do we know why, or is it just education efforts continuing?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One, I think that all due respect to our friends in the media, but I think that clickbait drives attention, right? And so I think that interesting bets on the weather or politics or things that licensed books aren't going to offer in the United States drive people's attention, and it's headline grabbing stuff. So I think that there's news making via Twitter just to get eyes. So I think part of it is just the news cycle and the 24-hour news cycle and the push for limited engagement. But I also think there is an education issue. I think we get a mixed review when we talk to reporters who are writing these pieces, and part of it is, look, it is newsworthy that people are interested in this sort of thing, and we've seen enough consumer interest in these activities that us reporting on it isn't us advertising for them. And others just say, we didn't know it was illegal, and so now we're glad that we're pointing it out. But it feels like it's a rock that we're going to continue to push up a hill for a long time. But I think with partners like you guys who are continuing to help put the spotlight on that too, I think we can make some real progress.
And there's lots of interesting data points in this study, the polling you guys did around offshore sports books. Perhaps the most interesting one to me, and this is what has always been compelling about a legal offer, is that you said 74% say it's important to only bet through legal providers. That's, for me, is what, that's an encouraging number when I see it, that there's that a number of people responding that, hey, this is better than betting in an offshore sports book.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, I think that's very encouraging. But I think that the challenging part of the results is the idea that people are continuing to bet with illegal operators, and the research indicates that a lot of those people are doing kind of unwittingly on the illegal side because they don't know. I think a lot of this, and Adam, you asked the question a little bit ago, but it's about consumer education. What's legal and what isn't, and so. We need to continue to drive people towards the legal market, give them alternatives, and find make sure they're aware of the protections that exist within those opportunities and where they can do it in their own state. So we have resources on our site. I know you guys are familiar with it, but our sports betting map tracks not just legalization issues, but also lists where you can bet legally, what the apps are that are legal, what are the books, the in-person books that are open and available to people across the country. So I hope more people are using those resources and looking for where they can do this legally that matches the interest that you're talking about, Dustin.
I mean, Casey, I would say the only map in creation that is better than that one is the one we have right at Legal Sports Report, where we're tracking the legislation throughout the country and trying to talk about where the options are being offered legally. Sure. And kind of by process of elimination, they're not being offered legally. So we know. Do
you know if any of the offshore books offered odds on the increase in cartography from people like you guys and the AGA over the course of the last year or so?
I've heard that a couple of the big offshore operations are huge into cartography now. Yeah. You go to check out your bet and it's in the Descartes. Sorry, I had to. Thank you. You're welcome to turn your Zoom off at any time.
I want everyone to see me shaking my head at that.
Good. You know what? I actually probably do too. I need to be publicly shamed for things like that. Well, moving away from the map section that I didn't expect that we would have in this podcast, back to your area in Washington, D.C. We know yesterday there was a hearing in Congress. The NCAA was there talking about name, image, and likeness for their student athletes, but there also was a discussion about sports betting. Your CEO, Bill Miller, as well as the athletic director from the University of Pittsburgh. What was the primary message you wanted to get across to the Senate Judiciary Committee in that hearing?
I think the goal for us was to make sure they understood that the protections that everyone seeks are only available in the legal market. Listen to the testimony from the AD. I think she's focused on pretty antiquated models and suggesting that somehow this betting activity is just starting and somehow there are new integrity challenges from legal regulated betting that didn't exist in the entirely illegal market that was happening just a couple of years ago. So, our hope is that people understand that the only way to offer the protections that everyone hopes exist is through the legal market, right? Add the oversight of 4,000 regulators across this country who are dedicated to focusing on gaming. Add the protections of legal licensed books who are the only ones who are seeing anomalies in betting activity and identifying problems. So I think that our goal, and I think Bill in his testimony articulated pretty well about what it is we're trying to, what the protections are and how we achieve those, and the role of the legal regulated market in ensuring that. But the other thing that's important to us, and I think we've talked about it before, is this has got to be a shared imperative, right? The gaming industry and AGA can't be the only ones involved in this new sports betting ecosystem that care about responsible gaming provisions, that care about protecting players, care about addressing problem gambling, and care about ensuring people are educated about what's legal and what isn't. I think there's some issues with leagues who are kind of entering into some partnership deals that are questionable. I think Dustin, we've talked a little bit about, or you talked to Caroline about that this week, right? We need to make sure that people understand when that this isn't just a financial opportunity, that there comes with that a real responsibility for not just the integrity of the competition, but also those involved in it from both sides of that transaction, the athletes and the bettors.
To follow up on that, Casey, you mentioned the partnership deal that was recently signed by Major League Baseball with an operator from Offshore. And not to speak specifically to that deal, but to speak in general to the idea of what that does in terms of potentially legitimizing some of these offshore operations. What would you say overall is your perspective on how those deals might shape up as we move forward?
Look, I believe that the leagues and others are doing a lot of due diligence before they enter these things, because I believe that they have to. And I think they have a longstanding commitment to that through their partnerships beyond gaming. So I want to first just say, I don't think they're entering into deals that are completely without any merit or without any due diligence. But I do think it adds credibility to offshore operators and others who aren't operating legally in this country when American sports leagues and teams enter into these kind of partnerships. So I think we have to be really careful. And I think that leagues who do enter into these partnerships need to be very clear with their consumers and their fan base that is not in this country a viable legal option for them if they choose to bet on their sport.
So in terms of Major League Baseball, I want to be clear about something for everybody out there. This is being done via this interview. It's being done via an electronic method that is interstate, but I might have to offer some sort of wager to Casey here, as it is whatever version of opening day we're going to have, the New York Yankees taking on the Washington Nationals tonight, assuming that you're not washed away in DC by the storms. But any thoughts on a friendly wager on this one?
God, I literally just said that to someone. Like, are you excited about opening day? I'm like, I'm trying not to get my hopes up because I'm afraid it's going to rain out. And like, I can't handle more disappointment. I think that I'm excited about the game tonight. I'm excited about baseball being back. I'm excited about some semblance of normalcy, right? I think the NBA basketball, hockey, even some of the MLS games I think have been interesting. Premier League's having a great end of their season, which I think is interesting. Like, I think all of these sports leagues coming back have been really good, at least for my mental well-being, and I assume a lot of others too. So sure, I'm happy to have a friendly non-monetary wager, Adam, about what it is about the Nationals beating the Yankees tonight.
I love your confidence. I will also love extracting whatever that prize is. Hopefully at next year's G2E at the latest when we're together again. Casey Clark from the American Gaming Association, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Guys, as a reminder, the full version of this podcast can be found over at LegalSportsReport.com, as can the written breakdown of every topic we talk about on the show each and every week. Thanks for watching.